And welcome to episode 153 of the Nerds at Large Gaming Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Darby Hellman.
I'm Jeff Mayo.
And I am special guest Jacob Hamill.
Special guest Jacob Hamill, back again.
I know.
From the dead.
It's been a minute.
Yep.
It has. It actually has been like several. You know, we've had Will on here since you. I mean,
yeah.
Come on, you gotta step up the game, man.
It looks like we might have Will next week.
Oh shit! Is that are we doing? Wait.
No.
It's next week.
We talked. Well, we'll get to the DC stuff. We were talking about having him on.
Right. Yeah. You kind of like melted my mind. I was like, oh, it's next week, September.
No, we got like two.
Results.
That would be two podcasts from, or we'll figure it out. Unfortunately, the August technically ends on a Monday when we post the show. So.
And it's going to take you like 3 whole weeks to count all those double jumps. So
I have those counted, I think. Did I count Microsoft? We'll figure out later.
Well, before we get into the podcast, we're going to start with our new opening segment called Where Do You See Yourself in 5 Stars?
Oh, God.
Okay,
What?
Gentlemen, both of you have been hired on as Bowser's hiring managers.
Okay.
And you've actually you were hired a while back. You've had this job for a while. You've seen all the Koopa Troopas, all the Goombas. You've been around the block. You know how this works. And none of them have ever gotten the job done. That damn plumber still gets away. Well, Bowser has made it more interesting recently because Bowser has discovered the multiverse.
Oh.
Bowser you are now being presented with grunts and henchmen from all across the multiverse.
Darius, I want to say before we go further, I love this.
Yeah, I'm glad. So in this first round of the hiring process, the lower people in HR have presented you 3 options for Bowser's grunts.
Okay.
And you are going to choose who will be the ones to finally take down Mario. Are you ready, John?
Okay.
All right.
Your options are, number 1, the Heartless from Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
And we were just talking about
The basic ones.
we're just talking about the basic ones, the little antenna green guys, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Or I guess they're black. They're black, aren't they? They're black Uzi guys. Yeah. I'm talking about those. Number 2, Slimes from Dragon Quest. Also just basic old slimes.
Do we got a theme going on?
Basic blue slimes. And your last choice, number 3, the grunts from Halo. The actual grunts.
I don't know those guys.
That would be pretty funny.
The actual grunts. The little like triangle alien guys.
Yes.
Jacob can help you out some on the
The children.
Grunts. Yes.
Oh, those guys. Okay.
So hiring managers, you have to come to a consensus together.
Okay.
Who are you going with?
So it can't be the slimes, right?
I was going to say the slimes.
You're gonna say the slimes?
Yeah.
Well, okay, go ahead.
We have all these variety of slimes that,
True. Well,
that
okay.
will show up in there.
So yeah, I guess sorry if you said it. So with Heartless or slimes, we talking about just the basic ass slimes.
Yeah, just talking. These are just the grunts. These are
So no metal slime, no king slime.
Right.
Okay.
Right. We're just talking about just the slimes. This is holding up the cavalry of your army,
Right.
if you will.
Right.
You know?
So with that in mind, I would go if the other ones were available because we have slime 9 and all that kind of stuff. There's variety there, but just regular slime just bouncing. I mean, look at that little guy.
But Mario, he also defeats his enemies by jumping on them. And a slime is very gooey. I imagine if it'd be like jumping on like gelatin, he's just going to stick into the top of the slime.
So okay. That was it. I thought you were going to go the other way. You're saying that the slimes are going to be more resilient to the jumping.
Resilient
I can see
and
that, yeah.
sticky.
Yeah,
it's a combination.
Yeah, he might not be coming back up. You let him land, and he's like, oh, you know.
I'd be like, oh no,
Well, Jeff,
I'm stuck.
As a Dragon Quest superfan, can you confirm that the slimes are sticky?
You gotta imagine.
For my extensive research, I do believe they are maybe a little sticky.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. So for the Heartless, they can just become black goos on the floor and just cannot be hit by Mario for a little bit and pop out and go like meh. But they don't do much as far as the actual moves.
They're pretty stupid.
They are very stupid. They are very, very stupid. And I have no idea about these grunts. They can shoot, which might, I assume, so that might make them better.
I'm assuming they are slightly smarter than your average Heartless.
Heartless are
but
dumb.
not by much.
Regular Heartless are stupid.
All right, so where are we leaning, gentlemen?
I'm sticking to the slimes. I think that's the way to go.
All right.
And depending on how gooey they are, Mario may not be able to do anything to them, really. Maybe Mario's just ineffective. So I got to go with Jacob on this, because these are grunts from Halo, so even if they are shooting, their aim is probably shit. And Mario can probably easily jump over, could be like, pew!
He's a nimble man.
He is
So those probably nothing. The Heartless are dumb, so yeah, let's go with Slime, just for the chance that their gooiness is his ultimate weakness.
Our gentlemen have chose gooiness on their side.
Yes.
We'll see how that works out for them. So the slimes have been recruited. All the slimes are pouring in. The Goombas, get them the fuck out of here. They had their chance. Out with the Goombas and with the slimes. There we go.
Now, if someone more talented than any of us wants to, I assume this can be a weekly thing where we just kind of pretty much replace them. By the end of this, make a Mario level in Dreams just with these enemies.
Please, God, please, I will love
I wish we were as talented enough. I feel confident in doing that.
I love you. There's a few people I know now listen to the podcast every week. Like Brent. Do you play Dreams? Please go make this level. I will love you so much. You can come on and talk about Ghost of Tsushima for like 10 weeks straight. Me and Jeff will just leave and you can just talk just please. Jeff, what is so special about this Fall Guys game that everyone keeps talking about?
They are gooey.
They are also gooey. What is with gooey boys? We are really appreciating gooey, slippery boys.
Yep. Fall Guys is a lot of fun, Darby. It's taking the idea of a battle royale as we know it and just putting it in a completely different genre. Still the same idea. You're just dropped into a thing with a bunch of people, in this case 60, and you're just going through some silly like platforming levels and all that kind of stuff. All these silly challenges in the form of a game show.
Yes, me and Jeff did a stream of Fall Guys that you can find on twitch.tv/nerdsatlargegaming, and we definitely want to do more than we also did our settlers.
You should join us.
Yes, I
was
should.
going to say, you definitely make sure you download that before it ends in August, because even if it's not on stream, I just want to play that game again.
I already got it. I haven't booted
Good.
it, but I saved that to my PlayStation.
Very good. Yeah, and I mean, that it's such a slam dunk that being on PS Plus, because now I can go to all of our friends and say, hey, download this please, and let's play.
Well, I do want to get to it, Ed. We can either do it now or we touch on the game some more, but now let's talk about the game some more, then we'll get into what point I was about to make.
Yeah, I mean,
with
I think
PlayStation Plus.
the game, the best thing I can say about it, I mean, we've only played it once for like 2.5 hours, but I mean, the game is just as fun as it looks. I mean, you look at it and it looks like beautiful chaos. I mean, just from the idea of it alone, it already seems, because it's basically like a Mario Party, but with 60 people, and like you whittle them down almost like a battle royale. And like it is just fun on its surface, just from it has like a Nintendo type quality, I think, to it, with the like chaos, but also there is an element of skill to it too. It's kind of like the beautiful mixture of both.
I legitimately think someone at Nintendo felt like kicking themselves for not really coming up with this idea or something akin to it. Though I mean, Nintendo Online though, maybe that would have been best, but you know.
Yeah, this maybe needed to come from the outside. But it's really fun just on a basic level. Like I think I could put like my sister, and even like I could throw my dad in here or something. Like he wouldn't know what the hell he's doing, but it would just be fun. You know, it's just like it's one of those you can throw even the most non-gamer person in the world in there. But also, I could see us getting really like competitive with this, because there was moments of stress when you got down to like the final 10 or 15. Like I felt like Overwatch and like League of Legends level of stress. I'm like, oh god, I'm gonna mess up. No, fuck. You know, it's like it's really exciting, as well as being just really dumb. It's the beautiful mix of exciting and fun. Yeah, Jacob, has this game piqued your interest?
Yeah, I do want to boot it up and play it actually one day. I just, for some reasons, have not gotten around to it. But it looks really fun. It looks like a battle royale I would actually enjoy.
Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and assume this is a battle royale game. I'll put the most time into. Easy. Probably already have.
Yeah.
I didn't play that much of Fortnite.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And it's such a slam dunk party game and game to play with your friends. I mean, yeah, being on PS Plus just means that, like, yeah, we should all just jump in for an hour on a random weeknight, you know. It's, yeah, I think obviously this game, I'm sure, is going to like hit a high, and it's probably never going to hit that high quite again. And but I definitely see this being a staple from here on out of just like friend groups of like jumping into Fall, especially if they keep supporting it with new
Yeah, that's kind of thing that, like they already added a new level to it, like a new game to it, and it leaked that they're adding skins from Portal and My Friend Pedro into the game within the next couple weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
So they already have plans to support this game, and especially now that it's as popular as it is, at least right now, they're probably already ramping up. It's like, okay, they need to keep this going. They need to keep on updating and adding all this stuff.
Now they have this big of a launch, I bet just like Fortnite gets skins from like freaking Marvel, Avengers, all these other, Batman, and all these other things. I bet Fall Guys is going to start getting people on the phone. Like, we want skins for
yeah, I think it's pretty much already a foregone conclusion they're going to get a KFC skin, because the Fall Guys and KFC Twitter crowd has been talking back and forth. Like the KFC came out with a Fall Guys skin, and Fall Guys keep on tweeting it.
I saw a Wendy's skin. Wendy's was tweeting out. It was like just French fries.
So I'm sure that's going to happen. What's also interesting about the PlayStation Plus thing that I think is very interesting to bring up, because it launched on PS4 on PS Plus, so a bunch of people got it for free. What's also interesting, I think, it helped it do really well, I believe, because this from like a week ago. After 1 week, it did 2+ million sales on Steam, which, considering this is a small game with a very small team, that is huge, and I'm sure Devolver Digital is over the moon with the success of this game already.
Yeah, I kind of forgot it was Devolver Digital. That's a very big hit for Devolver Digital, who's usually very smaller indie game, which this is kind of a small indie game. It's just hitting.
Well, it's kind of shown up in like Sony's kind of things of the indie game, and we see in Devolver Digital. And there's all those times every time we saw, it's like, this looks fun, and I can see this definitely getting a following. I didn't expect it to get to the levels it is at the moment, and it's, as of right now, from what I can tell, still kind of climbing. Like, seeing people more interested. Like, every YouTuber is playing it and just legitimately having a blast. So I agree with you, Darby. That it'll probably go down at some point, but I struggle to see it completely going away until we get like maybe a couple more of these that potentially do it better. But even then, this has the thing of being the first one.
Yeah, it is interesting. You have other games, like people compare it to like Rocket League, especially because of the PlayStation Plus thing coming out to a big bang. I mean, Rocket League has the competitive angle. They'll keep people playing. Like, there are people who've probably played Rocket League every week since it came out because they're like competitively into it in the same way that I play like League or Overwatch. Fall Guys is definitely not going to be that type of game. Like, it's not a game that I'm going to play every week, but like every time we have new friends come and they haven't played it, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, let's go play it. And I think it'll keep existing in that way. It might. I don't think it's going to like stay on top, but I could, especially if they keep supporting it. I see no reason to believe that it will completely die. Yeah. So everyone definitely go play it. It's a very fun time.
Indeed.
Fun time.
But is Deadly Premonition 2 a fun time, Jacob?
Well, I'm sure that's a complicated question to answer.
Well, I was going to talk about Carrion first to continue our trend of gooey boys.
Yes,
Let me change them time codes.
Is that the title of the podcast? Will anyone click on a podcast whose title is Gooey Boy?
Yeah, hey, you never know. Because that's
someone's fetish.
Because Carrion is actually the game that I played this past week. Yeah. That game is also published by Devolver Digital. I think it was in the same press conference as Fall Guys.
Yeah, they were both at Devolver's last thing, because Shu was there to introduce Fall Guys.
Yes,
I think he cut the trailer.
Yes. So if you don't know, Carrion is a reverse horror game, which pretty much means that you are playing as a monster, kind of escaping from this laboratory, and you're just kind of tearing through this science facility. And I would kind of describe it as a Metroidvania-ish. I'm using that ish is important. It's a 2D perspective. And you're kind of exploring this area, and you're acquiring abilities that can alter your movement, new powers so that you access areas that were previously inaccessible before. But the reason why I say Metroidvania-ish is because you're not really, I got a power and I'm going to go backtrack to this area. The game is very linear, and sometimes, it will guide you back to an area you've been to before, and you're like, I can now go through this area. but you're never like really backtracking per se.
It kind of intentionally leads you to that.
Yeah, it'll loop back around on itself. And there's also no map in the game, which reflects kind of that design style to where, you know,
you're a brainless monster.
Yeah, you're kind of like a brainless monster just kind of tearing through this area.
You're meant to just kind of keep going through. Not stop and think, where do I want to go now? It's supposed to be. Which I think that kind of coincides, like you said, with the whole vibe of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And there's even like a few times where I did backtrack thinking that I had to, and I was like, no, you should have just kept going. Okay. But I think I saw that a lot of people were kind of cool on Carrion. And I think your mileage with this game will vary depending on how down you are with the vibe, with the influences it's drawing on, because the monster is this kind of writhing mass of like, you know, guts and tentacles. It's very much inspired by The Thing and The Blob. And so if you kind of like those old 80s monster horror movies, sci-fi horror, then I think you'll enjoy this a lot. And I like that stuff. And so I actually really came away really enjoying Carrion. It's a tight 5-hour game. I think if it was any longer than that, it probably would start to drag. But from the moment you escape out of that starting pod, there's a momentum to you that just keeps going for that whole 5 hours. And I mean, and really, you know, at the start of the game, you're just kind of tearing through people and doors, you know, ripping, you know, the hinges off of vent covers. And even when you start meeting soldiers who can actually kind of hurt you, I mean, at the very most, you know, enemies in this game are never more than like speed bumps. Like, even if they pose a threat to you, it's pretty easy to dispatch them. And you pretty quickly acquire abilities that will just neutralize them being a threat to you pretty much entirely. So again, it's not a hard game, but it is a game that's all about that vibe and kind of, you know, being a horrific monster.
Were you ever wishing that the enemies pushed back more, or did it feel right?
I mean, some enemies can really mess you up if you just kind of run in there. Yeah. So it depends, but I mean, really taking them out is not super hard either. I mean, there were moments where I was caught off guard, or I just kind of was being brainless and just kind of rushed into a room, and then you know, I almost died. So I think it's a good balance to it. I didn't really have a problem with it being fairly easy, fairly simple to take out guards, because you are this giant, you know, glob of meat and tentacles and ripping through everything. You should feel powerful, and I think the game does a good job of making you feel like a terrifying monster.
Right. Oh, it's interesting. Kind of you saying it's Metroidvania-ish because it's kind of more linear. You know, it's maybe like stripping back a little bit of the Metroidvania style. That's kind of interesting because Shantae recently has kind of shown me that I have an appetite for Metroidvania, but not quite as hardcore and just like demanding as a normal Metroidvania. And that's why I love Shantae, because it has a lot of that vibe, but you're never like so lost that you are just you're walking around, where the hell do I go? It's usually like it's just out of reach enough to where you have to use your brain a little bit, but then you're okay, I get it, and you kind of move at a steady clip. And that's been like, especially as someone who doesn't have a ton of time in the game, like that's been very appealing to me, and that is interesting. This is very different looking game than Shantae.
Absolutely,
it kind of sounds like
same vibe.
Yeah, same vibe.
Something that I really like about some of the mechanics in Carrion is that your monster will grow in size, and different abilities are tied to the size of your monster. Right. So sometimes to progress through this area to solve kind of like a puzzle and open the door, you have to shrink or get larger. You have to change your shape depending on how to get through. And sometimes you're put in a situation where, like, I'm the small monster. I don't really have a lot of health, so I have to be a little more careful in how I go through this room.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, how puzzly is the game, you think? I mean,
mildly so. I mean, the puzzles, there were a few ones that kind of stumped me for a couple minutes, but they're never really brain scratchers in a sense. Again, there's still a momentum to it that carries through, and sometimes like, oh, I realize that I got to go and shrink down so I can have the ability where you can shoot a webbing and pull a switch that's like blocked behind a grate or something like that. It's those kind of puzzles.
Cool.
But yeah, I really liked it. something that is cool about it is that it doesn't really. This is a horror game, but it's not really signposting like, oh, these are horror moments. But if you kind of slow down and pause for a moment, you can kind of have those scenes that you've seen in horror movies where there's like a monster in a grate, and you'll rip the grate off and you'll grab a guy and pull him up, and then his buddy in the hallway will freak out, and then you'll grab him too, or some guy will be running through like doors and shutting them behind them, and you'll be coming after him and just ripping the doors off the hinges and coming towards them. So you can kind of have those moments if you pause for a second and kind of take in the scene, take in what's happening on the screen.
Yeah, I was gonna say Carrion never
Feel the kill.
Yeah, exactly.
Carrion never struck me as a horror game in the sense of like I'm gonna get really scared playing this. More that it was just in a like monster brutal setting, but it almost seems more like kind of almost like funny in a weird, tongue-in-cheek more than horror. You know what I mean? Because it is inherently a little ridiculous to be this crazy monster killing people.
It's kind of like, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing the thing. Yeah. So, and Patrick Klepek from Waypoint, he wrote a really good article that I read earlier this morning about how the game gets you to empathize with its monster, and that's a really good read, so I would recommend that. Yeah. And I'd recommend Carrion.
Sweet. Does it sound interesting to you, Jeffrey?
I've been interested in the game. Just Xenoblade, Paper Mario, Persona. Yeah, but it is on Game Pass. So
it is free on Game Pass. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. What do we have next, Jeffrey?
Now, Deadly Premonition.
You want to get back? Premonition.
I want to rewind a few weeks. I finished Deadly Premonition 2, A Blessing in Disguise.
And go read.
Yes, you can go read my review, kind of analysis of the game, which I'll kind of talk about here. But anyways, so I've talked about Deadly Premonition before on this podcast. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, you can definitely go check out some of those older recordings. But pretty much it is undeniable that it is difficult to talk about Deadly Premonition 2 without talking about Deadly Premonition 1. Yeah. And the reason why that is because Deadly Premonition 1 is probably one of the most bizarre and baffling games of the last console generation, the 360 and PlayStation 3 era. I had to stop saying last console generation because pretty soon the PlayStation 4 and all that will be.
Still right now.
As of this moment.
Deadly Premonition 1, as you know, is pretty notorious for having pretty bad frame rate in places. It was a 360 game.
And they really improved that, right?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
They improved by making it worse. Really brings the spirit of the game.
Deadly Premonition, originally was a PlayStation 2 game. It got pushed back to being a 360 game, but it still looks like a PlayStation 2 game. As well as, it being buggy, like characters just kind of like floating outside their vehicles, poor audio mixing. At one point early on, they use monkey noises for squirrel noises, like monkey cackling.
I think that as an artistic choice.
As a feature.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll pick up items and it'll kind of go to like a screen showing you the item, and the item will be rotating at like 8 frames per second. But despite all these faults, Deadly Premonition really gained a big fan base.
Yeah.
I mean, I am part of that fan base. There was a director's cut a few years later, a collector's edition a few years after that, and also a Switch port. And so the question that I had kind of going into and kind of thinking about Deadly Premonition 2 is, why did Deadly Premonition 1 gain this fan base as opposed to other games that are supposedly kind of the so bad it's good, like Ride to Hell Retribution or like Big Rigs Over the Road Racing, Shaq Fu. There are a lot of lists of like just really amusingly terrible games, but I think Deadly Premonition 1 really stands out. And so that was kind of like the point that I was thinking about with Deadly Premonition 2.
Getting the flip.
Yeah, I had to flip my notes. And so I was thinking, Deadly Premonition 1, in those aspects, it does have a lot with cult films. And so I started to think, how can we look at maybe cult films, which the protagonist in Deadly Premonition 1 references a lot. He talks about films like American Werewolf in London and Videodrome and Tremors and so on. Like, this is a game that clearly is a cult game that is also very referential to cult movies. And even Deadly Premonition 1 is very influenced by Twin Peaks, which itself is kind of like a cult television show.
Right.
And so that kind of puts Deadly Premonition 2 in this weird situation where it's like, how, what is a sequel to this game supposed to look like, is supposed to feel like? I mean, for me and a lot of other people, Deadly Premonition 1 was this game that kind of just existed. There wasn't like expectations or marketing attached to it. It's kind of like if they made a sequel to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, how would that go down? Like, what makes, or to like, any like The Princess Bride and so on. Like, how would you do that, and how would anyone expect that film to be judged on its own merits and not just endlessly kind of compared to to its predecessor?
Right, and just going into a sequel, the most fascinating thing to me is that there's everyone's reception of Deadly Premonition is very like complex, because there are like straight up bad qualities that you love. So it's like, how do you make a sequel to that?
Yeah,
because if you improve everything, you've kind of made a different game, and you've somehow in a weird way taken away things that people love. I wouldn't envy. I would not envy going into a second game.
And then you ask the people, if you don't fix it, they're like, okay, why wasn't this just fixed?
Exactly. It's very complicated.
Yeah. And so the question that I kind of get at in my review is Deadly Premonition 2 just kind of doomed to live in its predecessor's shadow? And the answer that I come to is, it kind of is. But I still think it's a serviceable, it's still an enjoyable enough sequel. Yeah. I think if you're a fan of Deadly Premonition 1, you'll probably enjoy it. I enjoyed it. But then I kind of dive into my article kind of discussing ways that we can analyze cult films. How does that apply to Deadly Premonition? And then how does Deadly Premonition 2 meet those things? So kind of like, trying to assess why Deadly Premonition 1 has this cult following, and then how is that going to affect it, or affect its sequel by being compared to it. And so I did a lot of reading on some of the academic scholarship of cult films. And here's the thing. Here's the catch, right? Technically, any film can be a cult film as long as it has an audience that kind of celebrates it for a particular audience that celebrates it for its own reasons, whether or not the director intended it to be celebrated for those reasons or not. There's actually a pretty famous essay on Casablanca and how that can be qualified as a cult film. But the thing with that definition is that it's pretty unwieldy and unhelpful. It doesn't really help us talk about films that we usually think of when we think of cult films.
At some point, you kind of have to default that definition to the way that everyone uses it, and that's not how people use.
Yeah, it's not helpful in movies like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, or Cat People, and so on and so on.
Cats.
Cats.
So that could be
2020
that might become a cult film. So Ernest Mazis, he's a professor of film studies at the University of Vancouver. I found a podcast that he was on, and he kind of named 3 kind of common characteristics of cult films, and I took those characteristics and I applied it to Deadly Premonition and Deadly Premonition 2. So he says that there is hyperbole, which means failed grandiose ambitions.
Okay.
So
to be a cult film, it kind of has these failed.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes, it has these lofty, things that it wants to be. This lofty story, or maybe like on a technical aspect that it fails at, usually because of technical incompetence.
Okay, interesting.
And material poverty.
Absolutely fits Deadly Premonition to a T.
That fits Deadly Premonition. Another one that he identifies is poor performance at the box office and with critics. This applies to Deadly Premonition because that
definitely
game,
critics.
Yes, the game received a 2 out of 10 from IGN, but also a 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.
I mean, that is a game that is trying something.
Yes.
That is a game that, like, we talk about way too many games being stale, doing the same thing over and over again. If you get a 2 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10, both from
there's something going on there. There's something under the hood.
Yeah.
And apparently, apparently Deadly Premonition, when it first came out back in, I think, 2010 on the 360, it only sold 50,000 copies in the first 3 months at a budget price of $19.99.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, then that's not counting sales from the director's cut or the PC version or the Switch port.
Yeah.
So who know? I don't really know the exact figure now in 2020, but 3 months after release, really, really bad sales.
It's still wild to think that we actually got the 2. But yeah.
And then the last thing is that a lot of cult films, they have a desire for innovation in the sense that they're trying to tell stories that aren't normally told or are kind of transgressive. They kind of break the rules of what is considered good taste or being conventional.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think Deadly Premonition also fits this as well.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It is funny how the this kind of design for movies, but it 100% applies.
Yeah, and a thing that I kind of finished my essay with is talking about is how Deadly Premonition, I would say that its gameplay, and this applies to the sequel as well, the gameplay in both of those games isn't really that important. I think it's fine, but it's not what makes the game special in any sense. I don't think you can say the same thing for a game like God Hand, which is a cult film or a cult game, where a lot of it does depend on its gameplay. So as to how much these characteristics can be applied to these film characteristics can be applied to all cult games, I think it's pretty limited. Yeah. But Deadly Premonition is a special case where I think a lot of the reasons it and its sequel have a cult following is pretty in line with why films also have a cult following.
And because it's so inspired by those cult.
Exactly. Exactly. So with the hyperbole, the lofty ambitions, Deadly Premonition 1, of course, I discussed some of those technical problems. With Deadly Premonition 2, it kind of has a controversy going on because of its really, really bad frame rate. Deadly Premonition 2 isn't like the first game, it's an open world game. And when you're traveling around the town on your skateboard, the frame rate is pretty bad. Pretty bad to say the least. I've seen the vids. Yeah, at times sub 10 frames per second, I would say.
Beautiful.
You're looking at actual pictures of a man running a skateboard.
But I know they put out a patch a little while ago that fixed it. And I think they put out another patch very recently that is improving the frame rate. It's still not like good by how you would hold other games. But I think for Deadly Premonition, it's fine.
What I really want to see is some outlet revise their score and drop it
because
the frame rate was improved.
Swear it gave in to the mainstream media, and we can't have this.
But the most important thing about these technical problems with both Deadly Premonition 2 and Deadly Premonition 1 is that they don't really affect your game progress. Again, the bad frame rate is in the open world where there's not a lot going on, and when you do go into combat in Deadly Premonition 2, it's in these cordoned off dungeons where the frame rate is at a base level much better. Right. So I think that's another distinguishing factor with Deadly Premonition 1 and 2 from other kind of the so bad it's good games, where it's a game that you have to play. If the technical problems are so bad to where you can't really play it, then it's not really going to have much love for it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested when you were playing Deadly Premonition 2. Did you ever get any sense that some of the weird, like quirky, what just normal, gamers looking at the game would say is bad gameplay or something like that?
Yeah.
How much of that in the sequel felt intentional? In a weird way, because that's something I would think about when you're like making, because when I'm sure when the original was made, it was not made with the mindset that everyone is gonna like fall in love with this game for how weird and kind of bad it is. Like that wasn't in his mind when he was making that one, but when you're making 2, it kind of has to be. You can't escape it,
Yeah. I really don't think it was intentional because like the frame rate is just so bad. It's just like how could you make something that was that poor performance wise. And like the gameplay itself, like it is actually an improvement, I think, from Deadly Premonition 1. I don't think that really matters a whole lot in the sense of like why people like Deadly Premonition as a series.
Yeah. It's also not even just the gameplay, but also just the writing, the presentation, and everything in general. I just feel like the reception of the first one would have to like kind of get in your head some making the second one, unless what's his name?
Swery.
Swery is just completely like he makes his own game, blinders.
I mean, maybe it is, and I think that's a thing that maybe is to Deadly Premonition 2's benefit in that, like, I think the writing and the tone is really good in the sequel. It reminds me of some of the best parts of the first game. York as a character is just as weird and eccentric as he is in Deadly Premonition 1, and I think him being in the sequel is probably the highlight of it. I mean, he definitely elevates the game. This is kind of getting into like the second criteria, where a desire telling stories in ways that really haven't been told before. Deadly Premonition 1 did borrow a lot from Twin Peaks, but the plot kind of progressed in a way that was so weird and bizarre that you really would not see it coming, even if you know how Twin Peaks shakes out. And Deadly Premonition 2 is quite strange from the jump. And at the same time, your character's York is also a very strange protagonist. I don't see York being a video game protagonist from like a AAA studio.
He's gonna be in Smash.
Yeah. The Nintendo, I mean, they paid for it to be exclusive.
And also the side characters too. Yes, a lot of them in the first game were inspired by side characters in Twin Peaks, but they were also weird in their own right. And that is kind of the same here with Deadly Premonition 2. I don't think the plot in Deadly Premonition 2 is as good as the first games. It does definitely drag in some of those middle sections. And I think it's when the plot is very closely tied to the events of the first game, I think is when it is the strongest. And so that was kind of like, when I look at that, it's like, well, I'm enjoying this, but because I played the first game, not because I'm really into what's going on here. And again, like the middle section of Deadly Premonition 2 is very dull.
I don't think it's necessarily that bad. I mean, this game is designed for you.
This
game is designed for people who love the first one. I don't think this game is designed.
Kind of like Kingdom Hearts argument with the whole thing, even though a lot of fans didn't like that. But it also seems that way with Deadly Premonition 2. I did see a lot of people that love the first.
It's also on a big stage where it's like a bunch of little kids can say, it has Donald and Goofy in it, I want it. No little kid is going to be getting Deadly Premonition. I don't think very many new people are picking up Deadly Premonition 2.
Exactly.
The finals go, oh shit, Twin Peaks!
My favorite show. But yeah, something that I think that is also kind of a knock against Deadly Premonition 2 is that the first game was set in rural Washington, which is a location that you don't really see a whole lot in games. And the town of Greenvale from the first game really did feel lived in, and it kind of came to life in a way. And with Deadly Premonition 2, there's not as many side characters. It is in the setting of like rural Louisiana, like just outside of New Orleans is how it's described. And so that is also a location that you don't really see very much in games at all. Yeah. So that is unique, but with less side characters, the town does inevitably feel emptier than Greenvale in the first game. Yeah. And something that I think was really interesting was with Deadly Premonition 2 is that because it is set in rural Louisiana, it's the deep South, and so there's a lot of African American characters. There's a lot of black characters in this game. The majority, I think, of your side characters are African American, and considering how eccentric a lot of Deadly Premonition's characters can be, and that is by intention, you do run into the worry of like, will the eccentricities of these side characters kind of start to play into maybe some harmful racial stereotypes? Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm going to reserve the right to say maybe I didn't pick up on something that maybe more perceptible authors or African American authors might pick up on. Yeah. But I felt for the most part these characters were just weird because they had weird personalities, not that they were.
Well, I will say this, like,
stereotypes.
as someone who I kind of followed what's going on, people followed Deadly Premonition from the outside, didn't go too deep. I didn't see people talk about that. What I did see people take issue with is the trans character in the game.
Yes. And that is the final point that I do, and the final controversy that I do have to address with Deadly Premonition 2 is that there is a trans woman in Deadly Premonition 2, and even though Agent York is kind of positioned as like an ally, and he even
goes on a little rant.
Yeah, he even gets a little ranty, a little upset at the town's kind of small-mindedness in regards to trans people. He still later dead names this character multiple times afterwards, and especially when referring to things that this trans woman did before she transitioned, which is still not okay. Swery has apologized over Twitter for this. They have done some work to rectify this, but it's still not perfect. It's kind of, they took out audio in an awkward sort of way. So it's really messy. I don't think Swery was, considering that the last game they made was The Missing.
Yeah, that was the whole thing when I started hearing the controversy. It's like, man, this is very surprising to me after The Missing.
Yeah, it is a bummer. And again, I don't think he was coming from a malicious
I mean, I said it to Darby as well when we were talking about when it happens. Like, after The Missing, I can't, right now, I can't believe that it's coming from a malicious place. It's...
Yeah, even after the revision, and even after Suda wasn't happy, was like not taking it well after the revision. I mean, all this stuff is definitely worth saying what you say, but I think this is also a larger thing of creators and honestly society in general is gonna have to get used. Like, this is a world that even though people who are trying to be supportive, you don't fully understand. Unless you talk to that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important if you're creating something that has these characters to actually get their voices involved in the creation process, because inherently, even if you are trying to be as supportive as you possibly can, there's things that just you have not lived that life. You're not going to. There's things you're not going to understand if you're only relying on your own.
Yeah, Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong. You probably know that be able to confirm this. Based on what I read, it sounded like Swery did have some people to talk to regarding The Missing and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And it seemed like he did not have that with Deadly Premonition 2. I think I saw something about that.
Yeah, which, at the end of the day, this should not have been a controversy had you consulted with trans women. I don't think this would be an issue, and you should have done that. You should consult the people that you're trying to depict in your game, especially when you do not come from when you not share the same perspective as they do.
Yeah, that's kind of across the board. I mean, it's not even just with trans and gay characters. It's just in general.
Yeah.
If you're like touching on a part of society, you should understand that part of society. You should understand what those people, the intricacies of all that.
Yeah. So I guess the final cult film point was poor critical and box office performance, or poor sales numbers. With Deadly Premonition 2, it kind of got 5 out of 10s, which is kind of what you'd expect from that type of game. And we don't know the sales numbers, but considering that it wasn't on the Switch's top 10 sales.
Yeah, for that. Well, I'm trying to think. Well, I guess they want to be at a Nintendo game. I don't know. I know it was on NPDs and all that kind of stuff. I think
it's safe.
I think it's
yeah. No, I was trying to think. I'm sure it still didn't do great, but because it probably did a lot digitally, it probably wouldn't have shown up in that story. So it was Switch exclusive. I'm giving some benefit.
We can go under the assumption that it sold what we would expect.
Yeah. So it is kind of hard to say how the poor sales numbers and kind of critical reception will affect Deadly Premonition 2 in the same way that maybe that 2 out of 10 and that 10 out of 10 affected Deadly Premonition 1. I mean, that divergence of scores certainly grabs attention.
So we saw some people that saw that getting 2s and 10s. I'm in.
Yeah. So with Deadly Premonition 2, I think the jury's still out on how that will really affect it. But at the end of the day, you know, I think Deadly Premonition 2 does live up to some of the endearing qualities of its predecessor, but it does definitely fall short in others. I think the writing and the tone is really good, and you know, I could hear Agent York talk about cult films all day. And certainly some of the poor technical qualities of Deadly Premonition 2, like the first game, does elevate its charm in a weird way, especially because those technical problems do not get in the way of game progress. But I also think that Deadly Premonition 2's plot is also not as good, and there's less memorable side characters, and you don't really feel as involved with the location as you do with the first game. And so the world kind of feels emptier.
But overall, I mean, every time I've heard you talk about it, it sounds like it's still a worthy extension. Like you sound glad that you got this extension. Of the story,
absolutely.
And just in a games industry that is full of quality, but very iterative and kind of stale concepts a lot of times, because it just takes so much time and effort to make a game that you have to make sure you can get a return on it. So you just do the thing that's proven to be successful. We need people like Swery to just be like, I'm just doing this.
Yeah.
I'm swinging the bet, and you know, it's he's gonna make what he wants to make. You know, that's very, very. We need that.
Yeah, and it is really cool to see games that you could, I guess, call cult games, where they don't really appeal to mass audiences, or kind of like really accepted views of like what is good taste or acceptable or conventional. And I think thinking about Deadly Premonition 2 and its relationship to 1, and then also like what does make a video game like a cult video game, because video games are a very different medium from movies, from television. And here I kind of tried to pick apart why Deadly Premonition 1 and 2 are kind of cult games, but as to why games like God Hand or Eco or other games like that, Killer 7 kind of have this cult fan base, I think is a different conversation. So.
Killer 7 might be coming on Switch. Worries about that. Whenever you keep on saying God Hand, I keep on thinking of Godfall and having flashbacks to that state of play. Oh God.
Yeah. I guess quickly, people who don't know, God Hand was the last game the people at Capcom made before they went and formed Platinum.
Yeah. So you got a 10 from IGN.
Yeah, that's another game.
Well, Jacob,
another one of those. Yeah, thank
you. Jacob does the work, pulls up scholarly sources in his discussion. Me and Jeff just bumble on about Smash characters we want to see. It's like Jacob brings a level of class.
Hey, Smash character discussion is an art form. Yeah, I take very seriously.
Definitely gonna follow Jacob's blog because he is a very smart cookie.
Yeah, that is Jacob Hamill, HAMILL.blog.
Yes, indeed. Well, Jeffrey, I was thinking, unless you have something special to say about Persona 5 Royal, I say we just move on to the news. But,
okay. It's pretty good.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, it's fine. We're going to have plenty of weeks. Jeff's been playing Persona 5 for months. I mean, Jeff, do you have any how you enjoying it? You
enjoying pretty good. New stuff.
You have 1 minute.
Okay. New stuff is cool. New characters. I'm finally getting to the point where I'm talking more, interacting with the new characters. Already setting up more stuff for the Ketchi, for sure. I guess also just to make it clear, I only got to the 4th palace on the original one and then just stopped because life. So this is me starting again, all that kind of stuff. Doing good. I'm on my way to the finding the victim for the 3rd palace. Fun, getting all that set up, getting some Makoto set up, getting all that kind of fun stuff in there. Still, whenever something new gets introduced or a story beat happens, I'm always like, was this in the original? Jacob, I don't know how much you know. There's so many new mechanics.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I've kind of gone on media blackout with Royale because I don't want to be spoiled on anything, but I believe it. That's how.
There were so many times where I'm like, sorry, I think this is not in. And I ask him, he's like, no, I don't think that is. And it's like, it changes.
The things that are new gameplay, like it has to make the game so much easier.
Yeah.
There's like so many things that
it's crazy.
Okay, Jeff. News jingle.
Jingle, jingle, jingle. So let's get to one of the big news of the week, and that is Halo Infinite is delayed. It is delayed from holiday 2020 into 2021. Who knows when the hell when? Xbox said it was result of multiple factors that have contributed to development challenges, including the ongoing COVID-related impacts affecting us all this year. They also added in there to that announcement, so it's like, hey, we got good news confirming that Series X will launch in November of this year. So also just kind of reconfirming, hey, we're not delaying the console.
Not delaying it for Halo. Halo doesn't have that much power. Master Chief's not taking the box along with them.
Nope. But it's okay. You'll get your Master Chief fix in Smash.
This surprised me.
Yeah.
This really surprised me. I mean, this was another example, kind of like Last of Us was earlier last year, where they had a big event showing off a bunch of stuff and released it, and then 2 weeks later delay. It seems like that happens a lot in video games. Like for some reason, the announcement and the delay. Right?
Well, I think this is partly because of the event, and the reception of the event was just so bad to the point where the 343 probably wanted to delay the game, but Microsoft. But after the reaction, Microsoft like, okay, They
even said that we've seen the Digital Foundry videos that we're working on changes. I'm sure it got to the point where it's like, okay, if we're actually going to commit to doing whatever changes we're going to have to do, it's not going to happen. Because just like any AAA game, I'm sure it was coming in hot. Like every AAA game is crunching at the end to get released. And you already saw them saying like, oh, there's going to be ray tracing after launch. They were already like throwing stuff overboard to like, because they were sinking. So it's not the most surprising thing in the world. And like as an individual game, like for Halo, I mean, in general, I think we have to all like become like less reactionary with game delays, because these are gigantic projects and they need it. And it can help the employees, even though there's a lot of evidence that delaying games just causes the crunch to be pushed further back. But anyway, like we have to like be more okay with that. And honestly, it's like, take the time you need. But from the bigger picture, I do think this is quite a big blow to Xbox's whole launch area.
It takes the big launch game. Like as of right now, they don't have anything big that's exclusive that we think is supposed to be a launch. I mean, it's just like the medium, but that's not like that's not a console seller.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm interested in it.
It's not going to be a big. It's like Kena for the PlayStation, where it's just a little another scribble. Like, okay, we have this cool looking launch thing, but nothing major.
Yeah. What was your reaction, Jacob?
Yeah, this was really surprising. I would not expect it, but apparently, I mean, when you really think about it, apparently word on the street was that Halo Infinite was not doing super well, and I think Halo 5 was not received also very well either, nor was Halo 4, if I recall.
Not particularly well.
It's definitely on 343's priority to make sure that Halo Infinite is a surefire success.
Yeah, I think they like lost their creative director like halfway through this.
Yikes!
And like Jason Schreier was talking about like back in January, he was saying that like it's not looking good. So
the whole it needing delayed thing's not surprising. It's just the whole Microsoft allowing the trigger to be pulled on it.
Yeah, I am a little surprised that it wasn't just allowed to. It's like it's going to ship in whatever form it ships in. It's just going to happen.
Especially when we had games like No Man's Sky and Sea of Thieves, another one of Microsoft's games, which launched to not totally great reception and was able to come around on it. Though potentially the thing that's different from this is the thing that was definitely launching on that day was a campaign. Like the single player campaign. There was the multiplayer as well, but the thing that we saw and people were shitting on was the campaign. That's not as something that's you can make that stuff better as you go, I guess, do updates, but that's something people will play once and be done with. Yeah. So if you want that to be well received, you need to make it as good from the onset.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things that like you already saw it from that event. There is so many eyes and expectations and kind of skepticism, rightfully so, over this next Halo game. Anyway, partially because of the Halo franchise in general has been like losing esteem as time's gone on, and Xbox is just in a very kind of like make or break type situation. And I do think that if Halo came out bad, that would be the narrative of Halo.
Yeah.
It would not matter if it got amazing 7 months later. The narrative would be that Halo Infinite was a failure.
I feel like in the long run, this is probably better for Xbox. I mean, I've seen some people argue that they should have just delayed the box because what's the point if there's no Halo on it? I greatly disagree. I feel like it hurts them more if they let PlayStation get however much head start with a freaking Spider-Man game on them. That's just, I mean, that's part of the reason 360 did so good as well out the gate. It came a year earlier, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah. So
no, you can't.
You can't. So I think this is a smart play as far as letting Halo go on because in a way this is Halo's last chance. I mean, they can still make the games and kind of turn around, but you're about out of the goodwill for the franchise. You gotta do something here, and you still need to release the box, and especially a Microsoft situation where they're not completely relying on the console. And Phil Spencer even said so on Animal Talking, where he's sort of like, we're not completely concerned with the sales differences between the PlayStation and Nintendo. Something they're going to look at, but that's not the key thing.
Which I think is, we've talked about here. I mean, I think that them playing a different game than Sony and Nintendo is probably a smart thing to if you're really committed to that vision, then you shouldn't delay the box for that because it should be, this is just another avenue for you to take, but all these avenues are welcome.
Plus,
and they have so many agreements with other games. It just wasn't going to happen.
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine who was pretty much saying maybe they should delay the box. Like, you probably may not be able to do that and make it go smoothly because you have marketing agreements with Cyberpunk and Assassin's Creed at the very least for big third-party games, and those are talking about all this talking about launching on next gen. You don't want CD Projekt Red and Ubisoft to be pissed at you because you can't get a game out on time and screw them over.
You don't want to come to this fall and your only next gen option for Cyberpunk is PS5.
Yeah,
exactly.
That might be enough for a bunch of people to be like, all right, I was going to get the Xbox, but I'm just.
Plus, also it's probably making them. As far as how Microsoft feels about this fall, there are a bunch of people kind of hinting at stuff. There's supposed to be a big Game Pass announcement sometime this month. There's going to be something crazy with that, so that could be something that making Microsoft feel kind of better about delaying Halo.
Yeah, and I think obviously this is going to sting, and this stings mostly because it finally looked like we were going to have a console launch that had at least two pretty big hitters. It's kind of more. I mean, it's still a better launch than we've seen in a lot of consoles in the past, but it's definitely coming back down to earth. And just because most console launches have not been that exciting.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I know you can say maybe it's not exciting because a lot of them are cross-gen, but I'm pretty excited for this launch timing because at least for me, there's Watch Dogs, there's Cyberpunk, there's Kena, there's Spider-Man, there's The Medium. I can go on and on. There's a lot of good stuff coming out around launch time that I think as far as at least when we look at PlayStation and Xbox's launch, this probably just gonna be the best one because there's Resogun was the star of the PS4 thing. We got multiple games that Resogun's a great game, but there's we have multiple games that will be on that level at the very least, even if some of them are cross-gen.
Yeah, launch lineups have always been very slim on consoles, and I think the conversation that Sony and Microsoft were pushing that this is going to be different. We're going to have a stellar launch lineup, and the fact that it's a lot of stuff is getting delayed, I think that makes it sting a little more. But this is really not out of the ordinary for these launch lineups.
Yeah,
right. I know it's a Spider-Man game, which is super duper hype, but even that it's obviously a smaller stopgap in between because if they didn't do that, they were not going to have a big game. Obviously, there was no game ready, and the only way they were going to have one of their big series ready was by doing a small game. Yeah, which is it's cool.
No. I mean, that's still bigger than the PS4 where they had a Killzone game and fucking heck.
And a lot of people walking through Walmart are not going to know that this is some small Spider-Man.
Yeah.
No, they're going to be assuming it's a $40 game. They'll be parents ooh, a cheaper the new Spider-Man game's cheaper than all these other games. Okay.
And it'll probably be good. It'll be short, but probably be good.
Insomniac said this week that it's going to be a full character arc for Miles. Yeah. You know what? I believe them. I just think like you were saying, it'll just be a tighter experience, hopefully.
And for Halo, what I was ultimately getting at, I think it stings right now and does. But if Halo can come out in the spring and there are people really enjoy it or whatever, I think Halo will still succeed or fail just as much as it would have in the fall.
Mhm.
The spring.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to. I'm not saying that this is going to fix it because I think Halo Infinite is a weird situation because we talk about fix. I mean, the game looks fun enough. It just doesn't look like the next big leap for Halo that any of us were like looking for. It doesn't look like something that's going to get Jeff off the bench who's never played it, or even me who's a lapsed Halo fan. I'm like, we'll see what other games coming out. We'll see how it feels.
Well,
it's outside of Cyberpunk.
I was saying for you at least, it's out of the range of Cyberpunk.
Well, my Cyberpunk range might be a year long. So
True. So what Darby's saying is, starting November 19th, he's not going to be playing any other games but League and Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, very interesting. Definitely didn't expect it.
What's also interesting is how different developers are handling next-gen ports. Some of them are doing it not as good as others. Control is getting a next-gen upgrade, but in order to receive that upgrade, you have to buy the new Ultimate Edition. The Ultimate Edition will be $39.99 and will have all the expansions in it. Just the weird thing is, everything that's in this Ultimate Edition is already available in the Deluxe Edition. But if you buy that Deluxe Edition, you are not eligible for the upgrade.
Yes, so if you've already bought the game and the DLC, which is all the stuff that's included in this Ultimate Edition, you still have to pay an additional $40 to get the next-gen upgrade. Which is just like, there's really no way to explain this that makes any sense other than it's just the most...
505 just wants money.
It's just money.
Yeah, let's clarify. I really don't think Remedy is the ones behind
this
decision.
I think people need to, people for Remedy when talking about this stuff, I think people need to chill on that because, like Jacob said, I really doubt this is their call.
A lot of times it's developers are just as upset by it as you. It's just the publishers
because they know that the fans are just going to get mad at them, and this helps them in no way.
Yeah.
And I think 505 has some history of maybe not this egregious, but history of things like this before.
I mean, what's kind of crazy is, and the thing that's annoying about this, and I talked to this about Darby a little before this, I'm more sympathetic with why Microsoft and Sony aren't being as clear as far as next gen port stuff and how that works. Is because it's completely in the hands of the individual publishers / developers seems to decide, because you have Ubisoft, I don't know if you saw, Jacob, I don't know if this is an official announcement thing. The PS4 and PS5 versions of their games are coming out. Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry are on Amazon. The PS4 versions are $10 cheaper. But they say in the description, you can use this to get a free digital version of the PS5. If you start the disc, a free PS5 digital version of that game.
Yeah.
But you got to have the disc in there and okay, that's great. They're all of it should be as simple as that.
Well, that's what this whole thing gets so weird, because you're literally paying $10 to have a PS5 logo on the box. That's literally the only difference. It makes no sense to buy the PS5 version because the PS4 version is the PS5 version. They're just in two different boxes. They're priced differently. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just probably gonna get I won't Watch Dogs Legion, so I'm probably just gonna get the $10 cheaper PS4 version, because why wouldn't I?
And with Control here, it's a real kicker because the console versions of Control runs like ass.
That's true.
Bad. So,
PC is king.
So, I mean, I played console on a stock PS4. I would love, Darby did too. I would love to play it maybe on a PlayStation 5 and play it the way the developers probably intended it for it to run. But I'm not going to pay $40 to buy the game again.
And it's just this just pisses off the very people that supported their game.
It's pretty much this screws over your dedicated fan base. I know people say that that applies anytime you buy a game. It's you can just get it cheaper. It's completely different.
It just makes no sense. And that's why it is, like you said, it's starting to make more sense why the console holders, why this whole thing has just been confusing, because it really is. It seems like everyone is like open to do whatever they want, which of course, especially in today's game industry, means that a lot of developers are going to be like, oh no, this is a way to get more money. Like, we make so much money off of reselling games, so no, of course we're not going to give you the free upgrade. And then you have like smaller developers that are like, yeah, of course.
Buy our game. We were talking about Kena earlier. They're one that's straight up. Oh yeah, if you had the PS4, just had the PS5 version.
God, I was just so I was naive and hoping that this was just going to be a clean, like, PS4, just insert the PS4 disc in, you're good. It's like,
can we believe that Ubisoft is on top of this and doing it in, like, so far seems like the best basic way? Like, you can just get a $10 cheaper, I don't know if that's universal or just an Amazon thing, the current gen version, just get the free upgrade. Like, it feels like it should work that way.
Yeah. Really no explaining it. I mean, it's pretty abundantly clear what this decision was made.
But at least I feel like most things will go the way Ubisoft's doing it. I'm sure that's going to be mostly the standard. There's just going to be some of the bigger ones like 505 and EA's already being weird about it. It's 2K for sure, and
the usual suspects.
Yeah, the usual suspects are, and maybe Activision probably.
Activision.
I'm waiting to hear what they do with Crash. As far as that goes, there's been no word on that. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that goes.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's easy to be cynical with the video game industry when you're dealing with giant corporations that kind of, you can predict them.
Speaking of giant corporations, let's talk about some of the biggest.
Really speaking of giant corporations.
So yeah,
we live in this, guys. We live in the cyberpunk future. It's just a lot more lame than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say we live in a society.
It's going
to be mechs fighting in the street, but instead it's like Twitter wars.
It's going to be cringy, dated commercials.
So yeah, Epic and Apple, and I guess Google and shit are feuding. Mainly,
generally, like, I'm sure anyone listening to this podcast has seen everything that's happened. We don't need to recap everything, but I mean, more or less, we have Fortnite put their own transactions into Apple. Apple blocked them, and they were obviously prepared. They knew this was going to happen.
Had a video prepared immediately.
Spoofing on the 1984 ad from Apple back in the day. Jacob, I'm interested to go. Like, me and Jeff have talked about this, and I shared thoughts on Twitter. I'm interested to see what your take is. I'm kind of on the outside. I'm fascinated to see where this is. I'm just very morbidly curious. That's where I would put myself.
What I find weird is the people just kind of standing Epic. The hashtag free Fortnite is cringy as hell, and I'm sad the people that I've seen kind of retweet that. Like, it was, yeah.
Jacob, what do you think?
Right. So where I'm at with this is that. Yeah, I think Epic has ground here, as you probably know, because everyone owns a phone. With Apple, you have to pay through. You have to do transactions through them. You can't have your own transactions through your app. The developer can't put in their own means for payments, and so Apple takes a pretty hefty chunk. I think 30% of all transactions, and Epic doesn't like that. Here's the thing, though. Epic is they don't really care about you as a person or as a consumer. They just want your money. They care about your wallet, and I think I would not be surprised if after this whole lawsuit shakes out that, if Epic was willing to reach some sort of exclusive deal with Apple to where they are an exception to the rule. I really don't think Epic is on the side of the small business, the small developer or app. I think if there are any trickle-down effects from whatever decision comes out of this, if it is in Epic's favor, then I think that is purely coincidental. And I also think it's really shitty for Epic to be whipping up its fan base of gamers to go...
12-year-old gamers.
Yeah, of children who don't really have the
they have no idea what's going.
You don't really have the ability or the wariness or the cynicism to realize that this billion-dollar company is using your fandom for legal and political purposes.
That's the thing that weirds me out the most about all of this, but also from just a social experiment angle is fascinating to me is this is able. I mean, both of these are mega corporations who don't care about you; they care about money. That's corporations. That's how that works. And
Yes.
but they want to make you think that's not how that works. And this is one of these things. Obviously, you're a 12-year-old. You're like, yeah, I love Fortnite. I can't play Fortnite now. I'm gonna side with Epic. I mean, you're 12. I get it. It's fine or whatever. And, Epic is kind of using the fact that they know that their audience doesn't really know the intricacies of this entire controversy, as grown adults like us don't really know the full intricacies of it, but kind of making them join a side in this corporate battle is just. It is a little dystopian.
Yeah,
it's a little dystopian.
Well, the whole thing with Epic is we know some context of Epic technically did this to themselves. They technically broke the rules, but the way they'll frame it and stuff, the kids won't get them Apple's just taking away my Fortnite.
Yeah, which I mean, this is I think it's a complex issue, and I don't want to be too cynical towards on every single last angle of this, because I do think. And I am number one. Every week I am talking about how I think it's very unhealthy how much people trust corporations and how people are attached to brands. I'm the one screaming about that every single week.
Yeah.
That being said, I do think Epic has done some things in the past. The Epic Game Store, I do think, has been better for smaller creators as far as revenue split than Steam has. And that has been something. Ultimately, the whole thing was to get Epic more market share. Everything falls back to money. Everything falls back to the company making more money. But there has been side effects, byproducts that have helped smaller creators. I think it could be another scenario in line with that. That Epic is hoping to, in some way, like you said, I think they would take the side deal, but they'll also gladly take the good PR of making Apple change.
Oh no! I was gonna bring that up at some point. What they're doing is technically I don't necessarily disagree with, but it's just their reasoning and just kind of how they're doing it. I think is where we can
there could be
call the question.
There could be some very good things that come from this, but Epic is also 100%. They want to be looked at as the Robin Hoods. And that ultimately is a giant cycle because that will help their PR. There are so many people. CNN, I bet, was running stuff about this. I mean, Epic was talked about by everyone. Epic wants to be known as kind of the scrappy new company, which, I mean, this is crazy. This is not something that most companies would do. Do this very planned, orchestrated, attack on Apple for some things that I do think some of Apple's policies need to change. We saw that with xCloud.
Let me play on my phone.
Apple is way too controlling over their own ecosystem. Way too.
Yeah, make no mistake, the App Store is a monopoly. And especially now, and cell phones are a utility now. There's no way around that. And for a lot of people, I mean, even if you don't agree with me that cell phones might be a utility, the internet is absolutely a utility.
It is.
And for a lot of people, their cell phone is the only reliable access they have to the internet. So the App Store is absolutely monopoly. I just have a hard time viewing Epic as a Robin Hood type figure when it's a $1 billion company.
Yeah. And that's why I think in this entire conflict and all of this, I think taking any one side to the extreme is going to be wrong eventually because it's just a complex situation. I don't think taking a side in a brand war weirds me out anyway, and especially in this one. It's
Hashtag Apple did nothing wrong. iPhone, baby.
It's just the whole thing is taking the actual impacts and everything out of it. Pretty fascinating. They had to have animators make this weeks ago, knowing they knew what was going to happen. They did this, and the Apple would block them, and they would be able to post this right afterwards. Which they did break the rules, and I do think that some of the way that Epic is framing this is a little disingenuous, and just feeling Apple unfairly took us down when it's you knew the rules and you broke the rules. I understand why you broke the rules, but they are making it, and those rules need to change. But it is making it sound, probably because that's flashier to the 12-year-old fans, they're making it sound it's Apple is,
and by the way, the ad or the commercial or whatever, the animation Epic ran in Fortnite was a reference to a commercial Apple ran against, I want to say, Windows back in the 80s. Or IBM. And it's like the demographic for Fortnite skews a little younger. Who
That's one of the funniest
who is
parts.
gonna get this?
That's one of the most hilarious parts to me is that like the vast majority of the people watching this ad have zero, rightfully so, have zero clue. Like it's so funny. But that also shows me. I mean, I think that ad in some ways, is designed, the free Fortnite hashtag designed to a 12-year-old and like the entire internet mob to get up. But it's also designed for this to be on CNN, this to be on MSNBC, this to be on Fox News, this to be on those things, because the older people watching that will understand that. Epic is an interesting company. It's just the fact that like we are in corporation wars. That is the level of society we've gotten to. It's like giant. Just eventually we're gonna have the Disney army and the Google army and everything.
Don't engage with the brands. Don't make
I
brands.
pledge allegiance to the mouse. The United States of Disney.
Brands can do good things because there are people working there. They're not just completely faceless, like whatever like that. But you should never if you find yourself being like a fierce advocate for a brand that you are not paid for, you are not hired for, or anything like that, you need to stop and reevaluate some things. Like brands, you have to be skeptical of corporations. It's just like they're not.
No, Dario, I don't disagree with what you just said at all. Anything. Something I just want to point out is funny. You say all that. We have a Nintendo logo, right?
You can be fans of.
I know. Just fine. I know.
If Nintendo is like,
I didn't mean that serious, right?
Money for people, I'm not gonna be like, I'm Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you can have fandom. I mean, you have to learn to balance it. You have to learn to be a fan of products that people do or whatever, but also treat them like a company. They are a company that is seeking money.
I know. It's funny we have a literal logo. That's all I was saying.
Now I'll take a sip of my delicious and refreshing food line, purified water. The only purified water that I trust.
The only water any human being should drink. Jeff, bring us out of the corporate hell.
Cyberpunk.
God, that couldn't be more perfect.
So they had a Night City Wire episode 2, where they went over your background and all that kind of stuff. Went over some weapons and all that shit with some detail. Let you know what's going on. Jacob, did you watch this thing?
I did not watch it, but this is where they talked about the Nomad backstory.
Yeah, talk about all three.
Corpo and the Street Kid.
Oh yeah, I just saw the Nomad one. That sounded really cool.
And that's where I'm leaning to. But I will say, it's to give big props to Cyberpunk. I think you're doing a good job with your routes when they did a poll on Twitter, and it was almost even across the board.
Yeah.
And I really, honestly, I'm leaning towards Nomad, but I'm very interested in all.
I just want us to do different ones for the sake of discussion.
Yeah, if Jeff really wanted to do Nomad, I'll do it. All three of them sound very interesting to me.
Especially after what happened with the houses.
I had to state my claim. Best boy club.
Oh well, I was happy with my choice. Black Eagles for life.
Yeah, but so you got extra content.
Edelgard did nothing wrong.
I think this whole Night City thing didn't really have new news as far as headlines of new features or anything, but it just gave us more of a look into those things, and they had a kind of a dev diary thing about a band that's doing music for it's supposed to be Johnny Silverhand, Keanu Reeves' band and everything. It's not a flashy thing, but as someone who is so ravenous that I can't wait for this game, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I don't know how Jeff felt.
Oh yeah, I thought it was really good. Probably better than the last one overall as far as showing stuff in the game. But yeah, I had no idea which one of the 3 backstories I want to try to do. They all seem pretty cool, and yeah, pretty much start out in completely different scenarios. I'm curious to see how that just.
Anyway,
not particularly at the moment. So wait and see more. But the band thing was cool. Jacob, I don't know if you know. It's not like a band you know. Refused.
Yes.
That they're recording all the music for Johnny Silverhand's band. It's literally them writing new songs, and they had a little part of it was them kind of talking to the singer, I had to completely write lyrics I would never write for my band, but it fits in this,
right.
And how weird it was having someone's okay, that's not good, but can you say it like this? Kind of like the voice acting director doing on it because they got to try to. fit it for
I've
this.
been told to sing in a different accent.
Yeah.
This is something new for me.
So that part was interesting, but again,
I can definitely this is not something that I think this whole Dev Diaries, this whole series is like a Dev Diary. It's for people who are really want to know more about Cyberpunk, which I fall into that category.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how different the different background scope throughout the whole thing. They kind of said depending on which one you do, the dialogue choices will be different because they mentioned during one particular conversation, two of them got additional conversation piece, but one of them just didn't get anything extra because they're not going to know anything that's going on with this. They're a fucking street kid.
Which is cool. It seems kind of dynamic. We've even seen situations they've shown us in the past, and past things they've done or whatever, but they're but you're from the street, so you know all this. It seems very dynamic. You just be in situations, if you're in situations and these certain things, and it doesn't seem as clear cut. They talked about there's some situations where at the beginning of this mission, if you were a street kid, you would have this advantage, but then at the end of this mission, there's this other advantage that nomads have. It kind of seems like a decent split. It might be something that only matters a lot at the beginning, and after a while, you can kind of build it.
It is more based on your choices than the actual background you showed.
Even if it is that way, that's still interesting.
Yeah.
You're starting the game in 3 completely different places with different characters, which
Gonna be a corpo and just use a katana the whole time.
I feel like Jeff, you would be. I feel like you're the Corpo is your glass of wine on.
Yes. Give me my katana. Let me cut some bitches.
All right, where are you with Cyberpunk? Jacob, do you think you're getting it this year?
Oh, I don't know. Probably not this year, but maybe.
Wait
maybe
for that
day.
PC thing gets worth
Do you want to tell us about your PC woes?
Oh man, yeah. If you want to take a big pause in the middle of news for Jacob's PC, I guess this is news.
Put Jacob's PC talk on.
Okay.
All right.
Make a timestamp. Are we done with Cyberpunk? Would that mean that you might delve into?
Yeah. So, I'm in the boat where it's I never got consoles at launch. I will probably wait a year for a PlayStation 5 for the lineup to build up, and so I've been wanting to build a PC for a while, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna build a PC. But I did the research. I bought all of the parts through Newegg and other manufacturers, and I checked to make sure everything was compatible through a PC part picker, and I got all the parts in the mail back in July, and I assembled it, and then I went to go plug it in, and I flipped it on, and it didn't turn on, and I was like, shit, what happened? And so I made sure, I was like, okay, are all the cables from the power supplies firmly into the motherboard? Is the RAM seated correctly? All these things, and I was like, it's still not coming on. And I was like, I don't want to scratch my brain trying to figure this out, so I'm going to call a computer repair store, and I'll take it to them, and they can figure it out. So called a place downtown, took it there, dropped it off. They gave me a call back, and they said, okay, it's a twofold problem. First problem is that you did not plug the front panel connectors into the motherboard correctly. And then the second problem is that your PSU is toast. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. And so I ordered my power supply through Corsair. I got them on the phone. They gave me an RMA. I sent the PSU back, and they sent me a new one. Of course, this is all during coronavirus, so that took 3 weeks for that whole process to figure itself out. And so about 3 weeks ago, I got the new power supply unit in the mail from Corsair. I was like, okay, this is easy. Putting a power supply unit in is pretty simple. I put it in, plugged everything up. Moment of the truth, plugged it in, flipped it on, and still nothing. And I'm like, double fuck. All right. So I was like, I'm gonna go to a different, and I didn't touch the front panel connector, so it definitely wasn't that. So I looked around, and I found a new computer repair store, one that was clearly a cut above the first place I took it to. And I gave it to them. I explained everything that happened, and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll take a look at it, and we'll give you a call. And so I get the call, and the guy was like, yeah, your motherboard's toast. And I'm like, oh my God. And And he was like, but everything else is working fine. And then he was like, do you want to buy, because they sold PC parts in the store, and he was like, do you want me to, he's like, check with Newegg, see if the motherboard is still within warranty, and we'll figure something out. So I clocked into Newegg, and it was 1 day past the warranty. So I was like, God damn it.
I've been paying for it.
Oh, it gets worse.
Oh God, no.
And so I was like, all right, what boards do you have in the store that are comparable to this, that are within the price range that I paid for? And so I bought a new board, and the guy was like, okay, yeah, I'll hook everything up. He gave me a call back, and he's like, yeah, so when I went to go plug the I'm going to go connect the motherboard to your PSU. The PSU caught the motherboard on fire. And he's like, look, man, you're fine, but we don't have a lot of these motherboards, and I'm not going to keep plugging motherboards into this power supply unit for them to keep catching fire. And he's like, I really don't trust this PSU because it burned the shit out of this new motherboard. And so I was like, okay. At this point, I'm like, this is getting really expensive. And I was like, okay, do you have power supply units in the store? And he was like, yeah, we have them for this price. I'm like, that's a decent price. I'll just buy a new PSU through you. I'll get a refund through Corsair, so that should be fine. And then he gave me another call back, and he was like, okay, so your CPU was fine, and now it's acting pretty weird. And he was like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Pretty much his conclusion, this technician, was that the original PSU was bad. It scorched the motherboard, and then continued voltage somehow damaged the CPU. And I was like, okay, I'm not fixing to drop like $500 to fix this PC that I was already kind of trying to build on a budget. And so Darby's in pain over here.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, like, I mean, I was gonna say this in minute like 4 of the story.
Yeah.
Now that we're in minute 10 or whatever, it's just gotten so much worse. I was already gonna say, you could literally we can clip out everything that Jacob just said, and this might make some people mad. Whatever, I don't care. Listen to what Jacob just said. That is like the best advertisement for iBuyPower for just buying a PC like I did. I just bought the PC. I maybe paid a tiny bit more than you would if you got the parts, but I just bought it. They assembled it to me and shipped it to me in the box that I plugged into the wall, and that was it. That was the best advertisement. You just made me feel so happy about making that decision, and you probably just made Jeff 100%. If Jeff ever buys a PC in the future, he will probably do it the way I just did it, because God.
Yeah, I mean, this learning experience has been priceless, but
I mean, listen, people, it's, just build it yourself. You won't have any problem. You'll be fine. It's like...
So yeah, I'm currently, I did get, the CPU was out of warranty through Newegg, but it was a Ryzen, so it's still in warranty through AMD. So hopefully they will send me a new CPU, and I think Corsair will just refund me for the power, because I'm not buying another PSU.
He thinks it's just the power supply just torched.
I think the first one did, yeah. And
Did you get to pay for the new torched motherboard too?
Yes.
God damn,
Yeah.
Jacob.
So
everyone go send Jacob love it. Send him like cute dog photos or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Send him money.
Send him money, man. You're like,
well, yeah, I mean, when you're building a PC, especially the first time, like I think your number one concern is, I don't want to bend any of the pins on the CPU when I put it into the motherboard, and then it's also, I don't want to shock the motherboard. I don't think I did that. I think I just got boned from this PSU.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So it's still an ongoing
like he didn't think that
ongoing saga.
The way that you had plugged it up made the power supply like he didn't think you had like assembled things wrong. It was just,
yeah.
Damn. So either like none of it, or like I wonder how much salvageable you have right now.
Well, the graphics card, which is the most expensive part, that's okay. The RAM's okay. The case is fine. That's about it. But
iBuyPower.com. It's just one of those. You can just buy the whole thing. You can customize. I customized mine, but they put it all together. That's the way to go. Because goddamn, that sounds like hell. Sounds like absolute hell. I'm so sorry. That's so much worse than I was expecting.
Oh yeah, it's been bad to bad, but hopefully it will all shake out.
Okay, I think that was worthy of a timestamp. That was the best news item, or the worst news item, actually.
Yeah.
It's been quite a nightmare as a first-time PC builder, but I am kind of glad that I built it myself at the end because I did learn a lot.
And lost a lot of money.
And lost a lot of money, but we're not going to let's not think about that too much.
We don't talk about that.
Knowledge is true power. Just like the knowledge that we are finally going to learn what that fucking Batman game is next week.
You mean you're finally going to get a new sigil or logo or whatever?
I swear to Christ.
Didn't they have a bunch more logos? They released
Yes!
logos?
They added like 2 fucking logos. There were like 6 more.
They just kind of stopped.
Yes. Worst marketing campaign ever. So DC fandom things happening next week. They put out a schedule, a lot of cool looking panels and stuff happening. Hopefully we get news on a whole bunch of DC stuff. But as far as this podcast is concerned, we're getting panels for the Suicide Squad game, which is officially called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, as well as WB Montreal's game. Officially announced, which we all know, to be clear, because it's a terribly kept secret. It is the Batman game. Yeah, that is happening. Get excited. Hopefully we'll have William Outlaw.
That kid, the nerd.
Yep, comic book extraordinaire. On this podcast, hopefully, to talk about these announcements, hopefully with something of substance.
Interested to see what he thinks. I'm highly doubtful, but I'm interested to see if somehow they can get me interested in this game. But that's my probably not liking Resident Evil 2 is probably my most controversial opinion. My second most controversial opinion is that I don't like any of the Arkham games. So we'll see if they can get me. Probably not.
But will they get you into Suicide Squad? Killing that Justice League.
If it's, I'm open. I will listen.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's going to be an Avengers style games and service game.
That's my fear.
Probably not going to be super interested in that if that's the case, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll keep it open eye.
Okay. Moving on. Yoshinori Ono leaves Capcom. This is big news. Yeah, that's the story. He's leaving.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the biggest names in video games and stuff, especially for Capcom.
Yeah. So this is huge. I think I'm talking about him working on Street Fighter 6. That's why Street Fighter, and that was not going well. So that's why Street Fighter 5 is scrounging around a new season. And we got a thing last week where, they're doing content through the end of 2021.
Yeah. Do you think this should be cause for concern for Capcom fighting game fans and stuff, or do you think it's just
opposite? Probably.
Yeah.
It's more the opposite. It's like people respect what Ono's done and all that kind of stuff, but it's kind of one of those time to move on things. Because I think he was a decent hand in Infinite.
Yeah, you would know more.
Yeah.
Not a big.
And obviously there are problems. With Street Fighter 5 start, and then apparently a bunch of problems with Street Fighter 6, and I don't remember the exact context, or remember all those exact details. There's some rumors about what 6 maybe was, and that didn't sound appealing to anyone. So probably for fighting game stuff, people are feeling better about it than they have in a while, even just based off the Street Fighter 5 thing, because like I said last week, the characters they added and the stuff they seem to be adding along with them shows they are actually listening to fans, and for a reason, people are more excited for Capcom's future and at least the fighting game space, because Capcom outside of that has been on a roll lately. So yeah, it is weird that the whole big Capcom revival kind of sort of happened without Street Fighter. The Street Fighter. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Not to the level of some other games, but Street Fighter felt like it kind of turned around with its DLC as it kind of went on. For sure, but hopefully once we get the Street Fighter 6 announcement, I guess 2022 at the earliest, or another Marvel versus Capcom game, or just a Capcom All-Star tag fighter. Just do that. Hopefully it comes out of the gate just looking great all around and people are happy.
Get young people in these companies.
Yeah.
Honestly, especially the Japanese companies, sometimes they can be kind of dinosaurs.
Yep. Speaking of dinosaurs, one is joining Dragon Ball Fighters. Not literally, which could happen because it's fucking Dragon Ball. But we are getting Master Roshi. Announced hours before we were recording, he is finally coming to Fighters.
The old man's entered the chat.
Yep, the old man is here with they continue the trend of just terrible announcement trailers. They don't show shit. Show me the moveset. Don't make me wait a month after the announcement to show me the goddamn supers. Just don't do it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to see a fighting game character reveal that does have gameplay, but just so little that it basically gives you nothing.
So it was literally just the auto combo string, the most basic one, and then one super.
Like usually you either have it's just cinematic and there's no gameplay.
Yeah.
It's okay, it's just a reveal trailer, or you go into it a little bit, but like somehow they met in the middle. It's weird.
Yeah.
But what do you think about having Master Roshi?
I think as far as characters that need to be added that weren't another clone of Goku, he's definitely a good one. Definitely one that is needed. Especially since, nothing to you guys. The arc in Dragon Ball Super called the Tournament of Power is the last one. And in Universe 7, which is the Goku universe and stuff, he was the only one on that team not in the game yet. All the other ones were added most of them were in the main game, but the ones that weren't were added as DLC. So he is the last one there. So it's nice to have that whole team together. He has some moves that he can do to make him unique. The Mafubu, whatever. Showed in the trailer is a very interesting, unique move to him where he literally takes someone, pulls their spirit or whole body and spirit into just a jar. And they're stuck in there. I imagine that might be like his level 3, and when he put in the trailer, when he put the thing on the lid, that's like, if it kills, that just happens and that's just the end of the match. Yeah. He can do other stuff like, he's going to have the Kamehameha wave because he invented the fucking move. So he's going to have it. He's going to get buff at one point because he does that. But one of the most important things is we finally have a character who can't fly in this game. All the other characters can fly, and that's kind of part of the moves, like part of the mechanics that people can kind of fly. So people kind of thought maybe they want to put Master Roshi in for it. I always thought that was a lame excuse. But since they finally pulled the trigger, that means we can get the champ himself, Mr. Satan, playable. You have no more excuses. Our system works. Put the champ into the game.
And that's the T.
Me and Jacob are very happy.
Yes.
Thank you. And I will have it comes out next month. I will have impressions of his gameplay when that happens, for sure.
And then after I keep crushing Jeff and settle it, I'll have to go back to Dragon Ball Fighters and just to get a win.
To beat your ass for an old man. Okay, time to talk about some NPDs. Yep. Okay, so we're just gonna go over the top 10, give a little information for the ones that need it, and then we'll go into the top 10 for the year, as we usually do. Number 1, I think to the surprise of absolutely no one, was Ghost of Tsushima. It is the fastest selling release from Sucker Punch. The last one was Infamous Second Son. I don't think it was surprising that it beat that. Achieved the 4th highest launch month dollar sale in U.S. history for a Sony published title.
Nice.
So I imagine the ones that beat it were, you might have, was Spider-Man, God of War, and Last of Us Part 2.
Yes.
I think it's safe to say those were the ones.
So, yeah, that's that it beat Horizon, I guess, Bloodborne?
Bloodborne, 100%. Bloodborne's more niche. It beat, obviously, Days Gone and all that kind of stuff. It makes sense for,
I guess when you list it out, it's not quite as impressive, but it beat Horizon.
Well, Horizon, the thing is, because that's so long ago, there's just so many more consoles, so it makes sense. I'm curious what Horizon's instant numbers would be if it launched now. Unfortunately, 2 won't be a great comparison because it'll have the small install base with the 5 at the time, depending when it comes out. So we'll see. Number 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Okay. Number 3, Paper Mario: The Origami King, no digital. And
I am happy. I do think there was a reality where that could have been lower.
Yeah.
So I am happy to see it.
It is
right below Call of Duty. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's not a bad place to be,
especially with no digital. Which, well, just with everything going on, even like everyone's digital sales going up, Nintendo's digital sales are also way up in comparison. As we talked about last week when we talked about Nintendo digital stuff. The Origami King set a new launch month sales record for a Paper Mario title with physical launch month dollar sales, more than doubling those of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Important to note, Matt Piscatella clarified this later. It still was double Thousand Year Door, but Thousand Year Door wasn't the highest before this. It was Super Paper Mario on the Wii.
Not surprised.
Yeah, but it still beat it pretty well too. So this makes me happy. Origami King is a great game.
Then Paper Mario's followed in with all the other Nintendo titles that their Switch version has become their best-selling.
Yeah, which was a pain in the ass reading the Resetera thread for it because people were trying to downplay this game's success, saying, "Oh, it's on the Switch. Of course, it sold well." No, it's a good game. People,
I mean, the Wii showed you just because you have a lot of consoles out there doesn't mean
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now people just really like this game. Okay, so Last of Us Part 2 at number 4. Let's see. Yeah, lifetime dollar sales are now the third highest for a Sony published game in U.S. history, trailing only Marvel Spider-Man and 2018's God of War. Already the third highest for Sony.
1 month.
yeah.
I mean, I guess is there 1 or 2 months that's counted in this?
This was technically its second month, but it came,
very short amount of time.
Yeah,
That's
very short. Yeah. Number 5, Animal Crossing: New Horizons, no digital, still selling like hotcakes. Ring Fit Adventure at number 6. Ring Fit Adventure is still pretty much selling out whenever it's available. Mortal Kombat 11 at number 7. Makes sense, the deluxe stuff is out, so that's probably helping it. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at number 8. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at number 9. And the last new entry to this top 20, Sword Art Online Altazization Licorice.
Licorice?
Licorice. I don't know, I'm going with licorice. Altercation Licorice.
Sword Art Online really went off the rails, and it never really was on the rails.
No, it went more off the rails. Let's see. Yeah. So top selling games for 2020 so far. Number 1, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Number 2, Animal Crossing: New Horizons, no digital. Number 3, Last of Us Part 2. Number 4, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Hold on, boy.
Number 5, Ghost of Tsushima. Number 6, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Number 7, MLB The Show 20. Number 8, Resident Evil 3. Number 9, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, no digital. And number 10, Mortal Kombat 11.
I feel like RE3 is going to lose that spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mario Kart 8 is probably going to get over it at some point just because legs are...
And Cyberpunk.
Well, yeah, just other games going out there, and Mario Kart also just going above it. Let me count real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think it's going to lose just from new games alone.
Yeah. So it's also just kind of an interesting thing is like 4 of these games are PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah. So it's pretty.
Yeah.
They had 7 remake, Ghost of Tsushima, and Last of Us all come out.
Very short.
Ton of money.
All that there money.
Poor Sony, you know. What are they going to do with all that money?
Scraping by.
Yep.
I guess they'll just have to bury some of it and burn some of it. They just have too much money, you know.
Yep. So you guys anything else you want to say about all this? All these games selling good, selling crazy. Switch was still the best selling hardware of the month. I doubt that's going to change, until console launch time.
Yeah, nothing that surprising. I'm still reeling from last week's Animal Crossing numbers. It's just wild how much that game sold.
Yep. Time to go to other news. Other news. I have no idea how much you have to say about this, Jacob, but the Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster will have Dante from the Devil May Cry series as DLC.
Yo, that's bullshit. It's $10.
It's $10.
Yeah.
So based on my understanding on this, in the Western version of the game, I guess the important like devil or something that's on your side was replaced with Dante. But now in the Western version, we're getting the original one. But with the DLC, you can also get Dante.
It was I believe. Don't quote me here. I believe it was the guest character is Raido Kuzunoha, who is from the Devil Summoner series. It's like a sister series of SMT and Persona.
Yeah. How many sister series?
There's a lot. It's a big family. Obviously, Western players don't know who the fuck Raido Kuzunoha is, so they're like, "Yeah, we'll just put in Dante," and people were like, "Yeah, that's cool."
So is he like the equivalent of like a persona that you use or something? Like what?
I'm actually not sure. I didn't get that far.
Based on what it sounds like, it's kind of the same. Like the purpose, like you use him kind of like a persona, but he might have more story relevance. Was also interesting.
So he's actually like story in the game. It's not just like a skin. It's like
I think
Dante exists in this universe.
I think so. Yeah, I might be wrong on
cutscenes.
Yeah. So what's also very interesting. I'm curious what they do. I guess they might have to get the guy because this version is adding voice acting. So they got to get Dante's guy to. That's bizarre. So while my initial reaction is the same as what you just said, Jacob, this is bullshit. Something to, not completely, something to remember is while it sounds like the other guy is still their company, like still Atlas and stuff. This is from a whole different company in Capcom, and they want to get paid.
It's true.
But I will say, like, it being DLC, it's like I kind of get it. It being $10, I'm like, that might be a little much.
Especially if he's just like a move.
Yeah, but very, very Atlas for them to do this.
Yeah. It may not have been up to. I'm saying it could just be on Capcom for.
Right.
Yeah, $10 range. We're talking about like a new world or some shit like that.
Yeah. I still have interest in this. The thing that scares me off is that apparently it's notoriously hard.
Yeah, it's a hard game.
So we'll see how
I should go back to it. I will probably play this port.
I am very interested in this port.
Yeah, I played a little.
Yeah, you talked all about that.
I played several hours of Nocturne. I just didn't get into it, but that was not because I didn't like it. And I played Digital Devil Saga.
I guess we have a good quick thought. How do you feel about the 5 trailer thing we saw? Hype?
I mean, I guess there's not really a whole lot to go on.
It was kind of yet another teaser trailer.
Yeah. But at least what's coming next year.
Yeah, I did question a little bit why everyone was so hyped. Like, be hyped if you want.
It's more that they're finally, like, starting the cycle of actually maybe showing stuff somewhere frequently.
The future, I guess.
Yeah.
What we saw was kind of not
it's kind of like people will be excited whenever we see Metroid or Bayonetta and stuff again. In any shape or form, it's like, okay, they're starting the marketing cycle. Right. It's that kind of thing. Speaking of marketing cycles, one is being extended. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is delayed to 2021. I don't think this is a surprise necessarily to anyone.
I think this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Not even from necessarily, also I think the game may be more of the time, but considering Cyberpunk time, and this is supposed to be going for a similar kind of thing, it coming out around the same time and having those direct comparisons may not help the game. Just because Cyberpunk has that giant-ass budget.
Take me as an example. I'm actually very interested in this game. It seems up my alley, gameplay, storyline, and everything. But, if it came out at the same time as Cyberpunk, I'm like, I'm sorry, you're getting pushed back a bit,
I'm sure then that's one of those kind of things that made this decision easier.
But it also, I know the first game was very, everyone loves it, but it's very, like, glitchy and, like, kind of held together by shoestrings. So I could see the second one. It looks like a very ambitious game. I could definitely see it needing more time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. The BioShock's being worked on. It's going to be in a new location. No Columbia, no Rapture. Rapture.
Yeah, it's the better thing to do. I think the part of what going into, especially a new BioShock after all this time, would be this, like, what's the setting going to be? Because that's a very, very big part of any BioShock game is what's the setting and what political ideology are we going to make fun of?
It will be in space and it will be actually System Shock. that's what the new BioShock will be.
And then whatever the creature that's going to be being in this is going to be in the next Smash.
Oh yeah.
I am legitimately very, very kind of curious to see how they would take how a non-Ken Levine BioShock would be. Because he is one of those. He's very. What's the name for when you have like the creator is like
an auteur?
Yeah, auteur.
Auteur.
I mean, obviously these are big games made by a lot of people, but Ken Levine it's very much his vision to a kind of toxic degree sometimes. When you hear about the development of the games. But, for better or for worse, he has been very tied to that. And I don't know, I'm just very interested to see where that goes, especially after just playing Bioshock Infinite. I played all the way there. I don't know, I'm interested because I would want it to be a new thing, but Bioshock, for as different as Infinite and the first one are, there are like common themes of you are seeing like the radicalization of a political ideology. You're seeing like some political ideology taken to its like extreme degree and like having an entire society around it. And I do think something like that is kind of important for Bioshock. It needs to be exploring some sort of real world, but exaggerated.
You're gonna get Bioshock's Metal Gear Survive, and you're gonna like it.
I'm very interested.
Final thing, which can go into a little short conversation. Skyward Sword for Switch apparently leaked on Amazon UK. So yeah,
how many different old ports is
Yeah.
be able to do?
How many games do they have?
Fucking drop them.
Yeah.
I mean, this makes sense. Like me and Jeff were saying, it seems like you should be able to port Wii games and just be able to use the Joy-Cons. They should. I mean, you might have to change some control schemes, but they should be able to do more or less the same thing. I would imagine.
Yeah.
But like me and Jeff were having a conversation before this. I just think that there's a reason to believe that they're sitting on some of these announcements. Like Skyward Sword might be further on or something, but a lot of insiders seem to say that they're just like sitting on this Mario collection. That it's like more or less done, and they're sitting on it, which I think is just like unbelievably stupid. When you have this whole first half of the year, it's been very light, and Nintendo has like nothing down the pipeline.
Hey, Pikmin 3.
Very light, nothing down the pipeline. It's like just fucking. And if you're holding on to them because of COVID reasons, you are literally the company that just released Animal Crossing and had like some of the best sales in video game history.
Exactly, they can ride off that for like 5 years.
Thinking. I wonder if that's why. It's like, we'll ride this Animal Crossing wave.
They're obviously got to sitting on some stuff because they were planning on having an E3 showing, and they obviously haven't made any announcements that like make you think that they showed everything they were going to have there. Like Pikmin 3 probably would have been there, and like, cool, fine, but nothing else they really announced to do that.
I mean, they just dropped the Paper Mario in a tweet, like whatever. I don't care how you release it. Drop this Mario stuff somewhere. It could be like that could be the only announcement in your video or your tweet.
Like I was telling Darby, it sounds like there are a bunch of people that try to leak directs, but the ones that actually have proven they know what the fuck they're talking about or hitting at something by the end of this month. Like, I think they were saying like we might get like an indie or one of the small directs like this upcoming week, and then maybe a full-on one the next week, hopefully. I mean, again, I know we've been saying this for a while. They need to show something at some point. They need to announce Mario. I feel like they got to at least have something. Nothing big. Maybe a little more than Mario and Pikmin for the rest of this year, or maybe not. Who knows? But at least give something for even just a little something for next year. Because even when we go into next year not knowing too much, we at least know something. We got nothing beyond even like Pikmin besides the Bayonetta, Zelda, Metroid Prime, which who knows when the world those are coming. Yeah.
It's just bizarre. I mean, even the Mario thing, even if that's the only thing they have this year, it just seems like put it out. Just put the thing out. I mean, me and I've seen a lot of other people online kind of say the same thing. I know Animal Crossing is like absolutely huge.
Yeah.
But me and I've seen a lot of other people online are like, I haven't picked up my Switch in months. And I did pick it up, and it's like, I don't really have anything to play right now. It's like, that kind of sucks, Like, that console's kind of collecting dust this year for me. Which sucks, because I really love that console.
Yeah.
And, like, Mario games, that would be an excellent thing. If you just, anytime you're sitting on Mario games, stop sitting on them, because those are money makers. Just put the damn things out.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Skyward Sword, whatever. Same thing. Zelda and Mario re-releases. They're all going to sell. Just put them out.
The other thing is, sometimes, a lot of times, these Amazon insert country here things don't pan out. Sometimes they do, whatever. But if this was happening out announced, I'd be kind of surprised about that, just on the basis of we're getting this Mario stuff this year because Mario's 35th year. Zelda's is next year, so I'm curious what they'll do for that, if anything, because like with Mario, they got ports they can do for Zelda like out the wazoo. Just make a collection with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and a couple.
You know what they're doing for Zelda's anniversary next year? They're going to release Breath of the Wild too.
True. And release the port. Just put every fucking thing on the Switch. Just do it, you cowards. Let the money roll in. Just let me give you my cash.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the Nerds Lives Gaming Podcast, episode 153. Jacob, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
I want to shake your hand.
Farewell.
Yeah.
You can read my blog at the Nerds at Large, or you can read my articles at the Nerds at Large blog, nerdsatlarge.wordpress.com. I forget.
So.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Go.
It's in the YouTube description box. And you can check out my blog at jacobhamill.blog. And I guess follow me on Twitter. It's my name. You'll find me.
Go give him some love. He just had a hard time. He's just had a bad time.
I have had a bad time. Yeah,
It's
oh,
just,
man.